Bang! Neeves Knives, I'm Jared, and today we are checking out some new knives. And this is the Urban EDC Castellan. And I do gotta say, that's the box right there. This has one of the crispiest and cleanest breaking detents. Man, oh my goodness. Like, this is, I don't know if it's unfailable. I'm sure I can fail it if I really try, but I'm telling you, I'm trying really hard right now. Keep my fingers off the lock. It is such a crispy, clean, breaking detent. There's something very satisfying about this detent. I love the placement. Let's see the drop. Yep, you get past it real easily. Equally as good with the reverse and thumb flick. Now, we have a clip point, well, yeah, I'll call it a double clip, whatever you want to call it. It basically clips down and then down one more time. I'm gonna call it a clip point with a dual satin finish, flat grind. It is a little bit on the robust side. I would have loved to have seen this be hollow ground. The blade steel on this is Magna Cut steel, and the designer is Demko, which I do love him as a knife maker, designer, and everything. I have a ton of his knife designs. I only have one of his customs, I think, but I do have a lot of his models though, like a bunch, probably over 10 to 15. The lock face geometry on this is really good, like super good. Nice sound. Even with the slowest opening, which I like to do just to make sure that the lock's going to engage, and it engages nice and strong with the lightest lockup. So if you did happen, which this knife you're never going to do this with, if you did happen to misfire it and it barely opened and opened lightly, it's still, you see how it just pulls itself in. See how it just engages right in place. So I love to see that, and the lockup feels very solid. I do not know who the OEM is, but if I had to put a bet on it, if I had to bet everything, I'd bet that it was Riet, especially looking at the hardware. I don't know that though, I'm just guessing. But it is definitely on the robust side, so, you know, take that for how it is. But I mean, it's not like over the top too crazy, but since it's a compact knife, I would expect it to have a hollow grind or just thinner geometry overall. We have this dragon scale milling pattern that if you look at it in certain lights, it does look like a dragon scale like that, but then you look at it in other ways, it looks like a wave or something. Definitely unique and interesting. A titanium spring deep carry clip that has some good tension on it. Got a couple standoffs there, as you can see. A decent amount of hardware, but it is, well, they have T6s down here, and if you look, it's hard to see, but there's a replacement plate down there. So it is a reversible deep carry clip. No milling on the inside. So, not that it needed it though, it's very light in my opinion. So, before we get back into the action, the ergonomics, it's a compact knife. So this to me is like a 3.5 finger knife. I can cram 4 on there, but it's crammed and I can also choke up if I need to. The pinch grips are gonna be where the majority of the cutting is gonna be done with this, which it has a great blade shape for. So the handle and blade, they don't really complement each other perfectly. I will say that. I love the knife, so I'm not like, don't take that as like me saying I don't like it or something's negative about it. But it doesn't complement each other. And I mean that because this is a small handle and a thick blade, right? This deserves a slicey blade because this isn't something if you're gonna bear down on this, let's say for 20 minutes of cutting, which I don't think you would do with this knife, that's why it doesn't really matter. But if you were gonna, you'd probably wanna grab a different knife just because of the robustness of the blade with the little tiny handle. You know, you just don't have, not that it's uncomfortable. I do feel this little spot right there, but it's not that big of a deal. I feel this corner right there, again, not a big deal. I could totally use it without an issue, but it's just not like the most ergonomic knife when it comes to the geometry. It has good access to the lock bar. It is slightly drawn back and they do have a chamfer, so it could have a little bit better access, but it's good. I mean, no complaints. You know, mostly just preference. I prefer a little bit more, but there's no negative there. Man, this detent and action is addicting. Sometimes a knife, you know, you just get it, and once you open it and deploy it, or open and close it a couple times, you're just like, oh man, I'm in love. That's the way this is, because it is such, the way this handle kind of goes downward, like sinks in right here, like whoop, like that. It allows like even more clearance than you would think that you have. So the amount of power you have in this flipper tab, even without even drawing it down that way, even with just like barely breaking the detent, this thing just kicks out. And then it is very, very smooth on the ceramic caged bearings, as you can see, super duper smooth. No detent ramp, which I'm happy to see, because it is easy to get past the detent, so it's not necessary. Man, it's such a clean, I mean, either reverse flick, thumb flick, all of them are good. Let's talk about the negatives, right? So just little nitpicks and negatives. One, sharpen tool and plunge grind. It is, because of the geometry, once again, when I sharpen this, especially if I sharpen it with the angle I'd want, like, you know, maybe I would just put a little bit of a higher angle, which you can do. You could just match their edge angle, which is probably like 25 to 30 degrees. But if I do match that angle, you know, it's not going to be as slicey as I want, right? So if I lower back my edge angle by dropping it down to say 15 degrees, or let's say 17, let's meet in the middle, 17 degrees. Well, then, you know, the bevel's going to be much larger, probably double to triple the size. So now my bevel is going to cut into here. The plunge grind starts here and it ends about right there. So it's very close to the edge already. So I'm going to cut into this with my plunge grind, which, you know, in this case, it's not going to cause a recurve or anything, at least for a long time, but it's going to look a little messy. As far as the clip goes, yeah, it catches my pockets. Even with my regular Levi jeans, this corner catches constantly when I go to put it in. It does get a little frustrating. You can lift it up and get it over, and it will slide in. Like if you go to put it in, you just kind of angle it like this, and then it'll go in. But it does catch there if you do not. I wish they would have just rounded this edge off or put a nice chamfer down the side of it, because that is a really sharp corner and it just catches, you know, every time. So that would be a negative to me personally as a knife sharpener. Some people don't care about that stuff, but also a lot of people don't sharpen, and that's why they don't care. So if you don't sharpen your knives, then yeah, this doesn't apply to you. You know, you're not going to care about that. And if you rarely sharpen your knives and you only sharpen it at the edge angle that's already on the knife, then you're also probably not going to care about it. But if you do sharpen your knives and you do like to possibly make them sharper and have better cutting performance and so on, then that's going to apply to you. It looks perfectly centered to me. Yeah, perfectly centered. Like I said, the blade to handle, you know, as far as complementing each other, is a little off. I wish the geometry was thinner for multiple different reasons, including, you know, cutting performance with these ergonomics. Is it that big of a negative? No, that's a nitpick for sure, because it's still a knife. It still has a cutting edge. It's still going to cut just fine. So, you know, take that for what it is. It's not gonna mean much to most people. But I do love the look of it. It does have a nice stylish look. I think it looks pretty cool. And, you know, it's a good size for most people. Very fidget friendly. Definitely going to be a great, useful tool. Love Demko's designs. I love Demko's work. Like I said, I have a ton of his knives. And Urban EDC too. Urban EDC is known for doing high quality knives. Sometimes a bit pricey, but you know, that's, you know, sometimes, you know, you gotta pay the cost to play. So there you guys go. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.